So we all pretty much know who Jordan is. Voted best keyboardist of all time by Music Radar magazine. Jordan Rudess is known as the keyboardist and multi-instrumentalist for platinum-selling, Grammy-nominated prog rock band Dream Theater. I'm personally a big fan. A classical prodigy who began his studies at Juilliard School of Music at age 10. Jordan's music is a unique blend of classical and rock influences. So, in addition to playing with Dream Theater and Liquid Tension Experiment, new single dropped on Spotify, I noticed. Jordan has worked with a wide range of artists, including Deep Purple, David Bowie, Steven Wilson, Jan Hammer, Enrique Iglesias, the Paul Winter Consort, Annie Haslam, LMR with Tony Levin and Marco Miniman, great drummer, Blackfield, Aviv Geffen, the Dixie Dregs, Rod Morgenstein, and the late Tony Williams, among others. Jordan's interest in state of the art keyboard controllers and music apps are another area of his career in which he's achieved a lot of success. And if you follow YouTube channels of manufacturers, we've seen him demoing a lot of hardware and software synths, as well as some more radically innovative performance interfaces and controllers like Harmonic Table and Rolly Seaboard. Now, Jordan owns the successful iOS app development company Wisdom Music, creators of the award-winning apps such as MorphWiz, SampleWiz, and Geosynthesizer. Wisdom Music's latest app, Geoshred, was created in collaboration with Moforte, founding members of Stanford University's Sondius team. And in addition, Jordan is the artist in residence at Stanford University's Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics, or CARMA. Take it away, Jordan.
Hey, just making sure you guys can hear me, first of all. Yeah, you can, you can't.
Yes, we can hear you fine, Jordan.
Oh, perfect. And now let me check the audio on my iPad as well to make sure you can hear that. Let's see that even coming in.
Yeah, we're hearing it from our end.
You're hearing it. Okay, well, that's a good thing. All right, let me just do this a different way then. So I didn't hear that part. All right. Now you should hear everything, and I should hear everything as well.
Yes.
One more adjustment to make. It's always a little something with this, right? Yeah, because I need to have that on. Can you talk for a second?
I can talk, yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, thanks. All right. Very good. Nice to be here. Thank you. So, yeah, I just got back from 3 weeks of recording tracks for Dream Theater. We were working on a new album. It was very exciting. And actually, one of the things that I was able to do on the new album is I was able to, as usual, to incorporate some of my new technology developments, as you mentioned in my intro, which was very nice. Thank you very much. I've been involved with some of the guys that are out of Stanford, of course, the people who created physical modeling, on a new instrument called Geoshred. And we're having a great time with it. You know, you never know when you build these things exactly what's going to happen in the world as far as response. And what's been incredible and very just rewarding is to see that people are really taking on to Geoshred as a real musical instrument. They're embracing it. We see Geoshred players all over the place, unlike most every other iPad app where it's just, you know, kind of a tool or a toy. Geoshred has become the main instrument for so many people. And two things I think are responsible for that, which are important to bring out. One is the playing surface itself. You know, these multi-touch devices offer all kinds of interesting possibilities for new kinds of thinking with playing surfaces. And the first time many, many years ago when the iPhone first came out, I remember sitting there, and even though it made a terrible sound and really hardly any visuals as well to speak of, I had an idea for how to express sound on a glass surface and how to use multi-touch. And it turned into an app called MorphWiz back then, which basically combined audio and visuals and allowed you to have every finger be an independent kind of entity. So you could pitch bend with one note and and not with the other, or change the timbre of one sound and not the other, and do all kinds of independent things with your fingers. And that started me off thinking about how to use the glass surface, and even beyond the glass, how to use a musical instrument in this kind of multi-touch format, which of course led to many apps. And then a really nice thing that happened was we started to see more hardware that started to come out and use that kind of concept. Things like Lippold-Hawkins Continuum, which to this day is an amazing, expressive, kind of 3D instrument. Roger Lin's Linstrument, of course, is one of them that is using this kind of touch experience. Others of note definitely include the Seaboard, the Rolly Seaboard, which is based on a traditional keyboard idea, but it lets you have every note be independent. So this kind of thinking to this day is still catching on every day. People are more and more, they're kind of building synthesizers to embrace what we now call MPE. In the early days, we didn't have any tag names for it at all. We were just kind of putting it out there, what we wanted to see and how we wanted these instruments to respond. So it's really, really interesting. So at this point, what's amazing is that on an iPad, you can have a very, very expressive instrument. And by using physical modeling, you're kind of tapping into the full potential of the playing surface. So I'm just going to point this down for 1 second and allow you to see the screen, which I assume you can see right now, and show you. So like on this screen, I can express this very nice cello. So the idea here is that every note that you see on the screen, every area is actually a full kind of control area where you can express in X, Y, and on certain devices Z as well. So you can move left and right and affect the pitch, or you can move vertically in the Y direction and assign those controllers to anything. In this case, I have a little bit of volume, a little bit of timbre, so it's changing the filter, or more specifically, it plays with the bow pressure of the physical model. And then with Z, which this particular iPad doesn't do, but certain iPhone devices will do, you can assign that to other parameters as well, which is really, really cool. So it's pretty much the first time where this marriage of playing surface and physical modeling has come together like this to create this kind of a union, which is really, really unique. My company partnered with a company called Audio Modeling, which is a company out of Italy, and they do some of the best models in the world. So we combined Julia Smith's technology, who's my partner, who was one of the inventors of physical modeling, with the guys in Italy, and now we're making a lot of instruments available, starting to make more and more instruments available for this platform, which is really, really exciting, fun to play, and fun to see, the reaction and what's happening around the world based on this kind of stuff. Shall I continue, or do you want to ask questions? Tell me what you guys like.
Just throw one out just to kind of get you warmed up a little bit on the physical modeling. As synthesis players, we're always chasing, like the guitar players, with the bending and all this kind of thing. I can't help but wonder with physical modeling, are we not going to be satisfied until we have duplicated the entire orchestra, right? And we're able to do every articulation, every expression, all of the dynamics, and the keyboard player, and now can by himself or herself totally just emulate through physical modeling the orchestra.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. I mean, yes, there's a whole mission kind of to be able to achieve any realistic kind of instrument that's out there, any kind of player's articulations. There's no doubt that, the designers, the engineers are all really interested in that. And I think that that's respectable to bring the technology to a point where you can do that. But as a technologist and musician interested in all these things, I kind of think about it a different way, actually. I'm excited to play the cello because it's beautiful and it sounds great. And I'm into any kind of a sound that would be expressive and allow me to make nice music. What I'm more interested is how do we kind of blur the lines? How do we go in between like a cello and a trombone? And how do we morph from one to the other? My whole mission, one of my big missions in life, is to understand how we can use technology to reach the next levels of expression, the next levels of sonic possibilities. So, for instance, on my mission, one of the things I'm doing is I'm working on an application with a partner, a developer, that allows you to take two different additive sources. Like we could take the sound of your voice and we could take the sound of my voice, and then we can express it on an axis, like on our app, in the vertical axis. You can start at the bottom of a note and it's you, at the top it's me, and in the middle is where all the really, really interesting stuff happens, because it's not a crossfade, it's an actual morph of all these partials. So that's one way to achieve kind of like a result that I'm really, really interested in. That kind of technology, that additive technology, where you start playing with the microscopic parts of the sound, I think are fascinating. So, every time I go into a discussion about where are we going with the physical models, there's a business discussion, oh, we should release such and such an instrument. But I'm like, well, okay, when are we releasing the trumpet that's, 4 times the size, and hearing what that sounds like, or the guitar strings with, 2-inch thick strings? Like, what's that going to sound like? So, that's part of where it's all heading. And certainly, there's university students that are, able to be a little bit more experimental and not worried so much about business, and they're doing cool stuff. But, one of the great things is that, there's so many cool synthesizers out there these days. So many people are working on sonics and synthesis, and there's no shortage of amazing sounds. For somebody like myself who loves sound, just I live for sound, I'm basically bathed in sound, whether it's wavetable synthesis or whether it's granular synthesis, where you're taking little parts of a waveform and moving those around and doing cool things, or whether it's sampling and you're able to do cool things with the sample. There's all these ways to achieve sound, but it's about the control, right? It's all about how do you control it. So, that's what I'm so interested. That's why I got involved with the Continuum and the Rolly Seaboard and the Linstrument and the Eigenharp, all these things that are pushing the boundaries. How are you going to change things up? Where is it going? How are you going to be more expressive?
Yes, we have a question, Jordan, and thank you so much for agreeing to be here and talk to us. This is very exciting for all of us, definitely. We have someone that is a Geoshred user, and this person wants to know what's the potential of the instrument in the future, and is it a way to have an interface or use artificial intelligence to help the newbie kind of learn how to utilize the Geoshred? I think that's the essence of what she's asking.
Yeah, well, that's a big question. I love it. The artificial, let me start with the kind of towards the end of the question. The artificial intelligence thing is so interesting. I have so many friends that are working in this field, and I find it fascinating. And I actually want to spend a little more time focusing on that myself, because I think it's really, really interesting. And I'm personally not scared of a computer taking over my, my musical space. I think that, the computers need information to operate, and I'm interested to see. I kind of feel like if I can think something through, or I can sit down at the piano and I can improvise, or on Geoshred and I can make decisions, then I can basically train a machine to also do that. So that's fascinating. So as far as education goes, there's a lot to be said. One thing that's very important to me that I think AI could be used a lot in is allowing people who are not music makers generally to become music makers. There's a difference. Like, being a listener is incredible. It's wonderful. People who listen to music, how, you know, it's the greatest thing on the earth. But there's also the art of making music. Like, what do you do what do you feel when you put your hand down on an instrument and you are creating it? It's really important to me. And AI kind of, like, I think will open up doors to that possibility. So like, you could do, like, here's a quick example of something. Like in Geoshred right now, since that is important to me, we set it up so that you can go to a patch, and as the backing track plays, you can have all the quote unquote right notes in front of you. So somebody who's a non-music maker in general, I'll move this down, could go to a patch. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, cool. So if I hit the backing track, well, first I'll play on the playing surface. So as I run my hand on the playing surface, so with one finger, actually, I can move through. But as the backing track plays,
Wow.
you know, that's pretty fun. And yeah, like, I, of course, I'm a musician. I know how to play, but the way the patch is set up, I could hand this off to anybody and they can start making music. So this is using basically, you know, the idea of just setting up a playing surface in the right key. So, but if you think about, okay, you add a little bit of AI to it and it starts to look at what's happening in real time with the backing track, and somebody can really move through some changes, and that would be really, really cool. Or even influence the changes in the backing track. So not even the backing track changes and the playing surface changes, but think about, you know, you're playing along in a C blues scale and all of a sudden you hit an A, which is not part of it. And the backing track goes, and it has information, and it just goes, okay, we're doing a modulation to D, and we go to the, you know, the 5 chord, and we're on an A7, and wow, that's phenomenal. So that's where I think a lot of focus is right now, kind of not necessarily in the type of things that I'm thinking about, but that's the reason I want to get into it, to maybe see if I can, you know, play the game a little bit to get people to think along the lines that I think would be really, really fun and musical and be a better experience for.
Can we ask you, just so that you know, the NEOACM, most of us in NEOACM, we're all computer folks, deep computer folks. A lot of us have backgrounds in artificial intelligence, and we do that in our day jobs and music at night. But I want to say that for our first SYNTH GOD Symposium, we had Roger Dannenberg, one of the inventors of Audacity, the Audacity software, as a keynote speaker, and we talked about artificial intelligence then. And we presented him with the same question, and you kind of led into it. You said you didn't mind the computers in your space, right? But what if I did this? What if I took every Jordan Rudess recording, all of your performances, everything that you have on your website, and I ran all of that stuff through machine learning, and I was able to produce the algorithms that modeled Jordan Rudess you know, just to a T. And I took all of that stuff and I, you know, put it in a big bowl with Geoshred. And then we just got rid of Jordan Rudess altogether. And I let my artificial intelligence produce you without you. You know, how do
Hey,
you
as long as I can sit in front of my Steinway piano and vibe out,
That's
tune
right.
up my world, I'm fine. You make yourself happy doing that, and definitely include me because I'm interested.
Right. Okay, so you'll take the royalties, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if it's going to put me out of a job, that would suck. But I predict that in my case, I'm diverse enough, and I accept and I go with changes. So for me, it's all magic and it's all sound, and let's bring it on.
And that's what happens with a lot of this. For the very best world-class musicians,
Yeah,
they are not worried. But it's the musicians under them, you know, the average mediocre musician that can quickly, you know, if I've done physical modeling and I've got the whole orchestra, you know, the bassoons, you know, that $30,000 bassoon, we've got that thing modeled. I've got the Stradivarius modeled. I have all the articulations. I have all the dynamics. If I'm scoring a movie for Netflix or a series for Netflix, you know, and am I going to want to pay for that entire orchestra, you know, the live orchestra, or am I going to take those nice, physically modeled, economically priced things and replace all of those musicians? So I guess that's the question.
Well, yeah, there is definitely there's definitely that part of the whole equation, because when you are a musician that is under threat to be replaced. I mean, this has been, this has been for years. This has been going on with Broadway pits and bringing in synthesists and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, you can't stop, you can't stop time and the art form and the technology and the engineering from moving on. So you have to be flexible. There's just no other choice. I just saw some amazing new Roland wind controllers, by the way. So anybody who's out there playing on a clarinet or something, you can go pick one of those up and join the party. But there's plenty, there's so many things you can do if you're passionate about music and control and expression. And, it's, I guess it's sad, but, unless you kind of embrace what's going on in the modern world, you can be left behind. I mean, think about, movies, like, what about like silent movies, when all of a sudden they were like talkies, and the people who were into silent movies, they were upset, but hey, nothing was going to stop the talkies from happening, and then, and color from coming into the picture, and things changed, and the ones who embraced it went on and had very creative lives. And unfortunately, some people just couldn't make those changes and were stuck. And that's really sad, because, maybe you have some really, really talented people who couldn't go along with the times. I definitely understand the problem. I'm even sympathetic to it. My heart goes out to anybody who feels threatened and who feels like, wow, I'm not making as much, I'm having trouble putting food on the table. I mean, that would really suck. But
well,
you know what?
We have a couple of more questions we want to get to. Could your technology be used to demonstrate differences and exploit those differences between instruments made by different makers over the whole period of music?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, physical modeling could be used to do that. We'd have to either adjust the model or adjust the parameters in the model to make like patches that would represent different instruments. Like, I guess what I mean, to make it more simply. So we have, as an example, this, this saxophone, like which model saxophone is this? I don't know. But if I did some research and I started to listen to this company's saxophone and that company's saxophone, maybe I could go, you know what? If I change the form in a little bit, I might actually get to another maker's kind of sound and dial it in and tune it in, either with the parameters that exist, because we have things like expression and formant with strings. We have bow position and pressure on the bow and all these things. So yes, the technology could definitely be used for that. It would have to be specifically designed with that purpose in mind. It seems like that kind of thing would be a very nice educational kind of tool to you know, to use physical modeling to do that. There's a company that does that kind of thing, that does like really diverse kind of piano models. It's called MODAT, I think, MODATT, I think. I might be spacing on the exact name, but they do, you know, you call up the software and they've got a piano from the 1930s and from the 50s, and so they kind of do that, which is interesting. So yes, that could definitely happen.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions. They're curious about the Z control. What is it controlling?
All the different axes can do anything, really. So any controller you want to assign it to, all the parameters are basically assignable, and so you can assign Z to whatever parameter that you want. And again, on my iPad, the iPad doesn't do it. The iPad doesn't do Z. There's only X and Y.
Okay, so I had a question. It's related to our topic as far as what do you think the direction of the future of synthesis. We watched the video and it was talking about the interfaces and all the different interfaces, and you brought that up a little earlier. So they were making the point that, you know, music, the sounds are out there, and they didn't think anything new would be on the horizon, and it's about the interface and the control and performance.
So I didn't really get the question part of that, though.
Was the interfacing with these devices, you know, could kind of even asking with the Geoshred, you see creating different kind of control surfaces or different kind of interactions. We brought that up earlier, that some people may not have musicianship, maybe using brain waves or using, you know, going back to the theremin where it's being controlled by, you know, air, using your hands, and you know, that's really the future as opposed to creating new.
I see. I totally understand. Yeah. Well, I think that that's an interesting thing to think about, because so much of it has to do with control. I mean, if we go back in time a bit, like back to even when I started playing the Minimoog, which was a long time ago, there was a whole argument that electronic musical instruments were not expressive, not sensitive. I didn't buy into it then. I absolutely don't buy into it now. And the reason I didn't buy into it then is basically because you got all these knobs in the thing, and you can turn them like so like delicately, or give them a good turn, or move multiple ones at the same time. Yeah, you couldn't do like velocity sensitivity or pressure sensitivity on the actual keys, and that was a limitation. But I did feel like they were very expressive in a new way, because I was turning these knobs. I almost felt like the knobs were like attached to my forehead. Like it was just so, I felt really, really connected with it. So that argument never really was something that I endorsed. I could never go that route of saying, you know, these instruments are not expressive. But that led me down a path to thinking about controllers and how to kind of reach further levels of control. And in my life, I've been really lucky to experience so many different kinds of controllers, and put my hands on them, and put my hands in the air. And, you know, even the time when I was playing a VR drum set, and I dropped the controllers down from up here and dropped them to the ground, because there was a virtual snare drum and I forgot I wasn't in the real world, and I think I broke one of the controllers. But anyway, there's all kinds of you know, all kinds of ways to control. But what we're looking for is to continue this development to make it so that you have the maximum expression, the maximum fun, the maximum amount of information. That's what it is. Like you play, I heard a lot of people talking about this lately. Like, you know, you get a synthesizer and you're playing it on whatever controller, and maybe what you're looking at is a very like black and white kind of interface that doesn't show you much. But all of a sudden, maybe you add a graphic, like maybe you add an oscilloscope, something that gives you some visual feedback about what's going on. And all of a sudden, your brain kind of puts these things together, and you have trouble separating, like, okay, this is visual, this is tactile. It becomes one. So the more kind of like that designers understand that, like people are not going to really be able to separate so well what is the visual and what is the audio. Like An example being this. One of the early iOS apps was a guitar that you could strum, right? And they started out and they let you strum it. It actually had a really, really good sound, a very impressive sound to strum, but nothing was happening on the screen. About a month later, they updated it to where as you played the guitar and you strummed on the glass, the strings vibrated. And it kind of, all of a sudden, it was like, what? That's so crazy. You felt like you were doing something. It totally changed the experience. But meanwhile, the sound didn't change at all. So that's why, like, you know, in my discussion with developers, if they present, you know, if they have a really great synthesizer, but it looks like nothing, like it's just like lines drawn on a screen, I'm like, man, you're missing out, because that's not the way the brain works. If you put a really good interface here and you make people feel like maybe there's shadows as you press the key and then you lift up and something visual happens to make you think that something actually went down, it's going to change the experience. So that's why I think it's so important. And I think that that's why people keep experimenting with controllers. And certainly, you know, you got all these new technologies like VR and AR and all these things, but you know, who really wants to wave their hands around in the air and not feel anything or see any visual response? I mean, yeah, in VR, you could get cool colors to happen when you move your hands, but you can't tell. Let's say if you're moving your hand, you're doing something really cool and you're going, duh. Well, when you get to your destination note, what do you feel? Like, what's going on? You don't feel anything. So, I mean, unless maybe you wear a glove, you know, and the glove could give you feedback, but all that is being, you know, it's all being worked on. And that's the kind of stuff that I think is really, you know, we're going to see so much more of. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are working on that kind of thing, but we have to keep in mind that we need to have, you know, physical, visual, audio response to what we do as human beings. And when we connect that all, get the maximum information from what we're doing, I think that creates a very powerful experience.
Yeah, so you had a question. Do you have any examples of the morphing of two instruments?
That's Mike from where?
From Mike.
And that's
Yeah, I have some morphing examples. Let me just call this up a sec. Well, on this instrument, which is going to be called MorphWiz Pro, we don't have our like patches yet. We're just still in development. It's kind of in, I guess you could say beta at this point. But you could take something like this. Let's move this down. Take a look. You guys can be the first on your block to see this. So at the bottom, you have this sound. The top. So you got this kind of vocal effect. Right? At the bottom, it's more almost like a string instrument. And as you move through from one to the other, here we are in the middle. Right? Now very smooth morph. So that's just an example of two sounds that are kind of similar that that can be used in that kind of way. Another one that might be with some similar kind of sounds. Two completely different flutes. This one and this. One's more acoustic, one's more kind of through effects, and you go. And if you make it like, you know, if you can do things that are really, really kind of crazy, like let's see what patches I have in here. Yeah, so like this kind of thing. Get some weird talking, different effects up there, and you crossfade, or I mean, you morph between them. That's just a little preview of the idea.
Wow, that is just awesome. Are you considering Geoshred having its own control surface? And because we know how Apple can be kind of, you know, kind of crazy. You know?
Right. Absolutely. So Geoshred, you know, part of it is like a tone module, a MIDI controller, but a big part of the Geoshred experience is in the control surface. So that's a piece of the puzzle. The Geoshred control surface is basically what you're looking at right now. So it's an all-in-one kind of instrument or platform where you have this control surface that's capable of putting you know, different kind of note choices on the screen, or even what's cool is that you can have different size notes. Like you see the notes are very small now, but if I go to this patch, all of a sudden they become much bigger. And the reason that they become much bigger, first of all, you can save it any way you want with whatever scale you want per patch. And you can also do different assignments for each note area. But this is larger because there's more room to express, like so in some cases, you want to have that additional kind of space to control, especially when, like in this case, I'm pushing the sound into the amplifier, or I'm adding feedback, or all that kind of stuff. I want to be able. I don't want to have a tiny area. That's the beauty of software instruments, is that you can do those kind of things. You're not limited to you know, certain size keys or buttons or that kind of thing.
So if you are, if we take the premise that let's say music is as much about what you see as what you hear these days, right? There's a visualization component to it. Do you want the what you see part to be more artistic and fantasy based, or do you does it make sense for what you see to be a direct correlation of the sound? You know, are we talking about scientific visualization? Are we talking about artistic visualization?
That's a great question. I think that personally, I'm interested in both, and interested, and I also want to see both. Like, you know, like the MorphWiz Pro visualization is kind of about, it's about that. So like if you play a sound like this one, you see that there's the visualization. Well, the visualization is also something that's programmable. So we can have it show you frequency, we can show you timbral depth, and everything inside this very cool looking little creature that we call Blobby is going to give you information about what's going on with the sound. You know, we could have taken a more scientific approach and just offered like some kind of a spectrum, you know, graphic or an oscilloscope or something like that. But I was like, you know what? I want to have the option to actually have something really cool. So if I want to take an output of my device and put it on the screen as I'm playing, it can also function as entertainment. I mean, this is music and this is, you know, entertainment. It's supposed to make you feel good. And so I value something that not only gives me information, but also brings me joy on other levels.
Yes, we're at 2:50. I didn't know if you had more time, or
I certainly can take another question or two. That's fine.
Okay, so I had a question as far as what kind of functionality do you think your main synthesizer keyboard will have 10 years from now?
Yeah, well, I've been thinking a lot about that. You know, we've reached a point now where synthesizers in general can make incredible sounds. Like when I play on my Korg Kronos, and I play in Dream Theater, it's really joyous because, I mean, I can, you know, be rocking strings with a huge choir, and then my pinky, I can be playing Taurus bass pedals, and then my thumb, I can be having this awesome French horn sound, and then I can switch without interrupting the sound at all, and all my effects carry over, and everything is really, really great. You know, when I go to touch the instrument, then I realize that, okay, we're still, you know, maybe in 2021, and things are not quite where I want them in other ways, but we've come so far in so many ways. But what I really want to get to is a point where your instruments are really, really powerful, and we take some of the really like technical things that most people don't care about, don't want to see, and we bring them into a point where they're visual. So imagine a synthesizer that you're in front of with a large screen, and you're touching and you're interacting with icons that, by the nature of the visualizations and by when you touch them, you really get a sense of what's going on. So the visual is a representation of what's happening sonically. So if you're ring modulating something, as an example, and you're squeezing it together, maybe it turns metallic. Maybe the image that starts out and looks like a pastel painting all of a sudden turns into like a metallic look, and it's literally giving you the feedback that maybe it's a model. Now your model is actually getting more like a steel kind of material. That to me would be amazing. I don't need to see any of these screens with all the numbers and all the stuff. And yeah, maybe you hit a button, you go to that mode, and you can, somebody who's into that can see all that. But just to be able to feel, to interact, to get the visual information, that's where it's going. Whether I'll have a machine that does that in 2 years, I hope so. Your audio's muted.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
We got a question.
Okay, yeah, she wanted to ask you directly. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just had a quick question. So yeah, I just wanted to know. Hi, I'm Sudhanva. I just had a quick question. So I just wanted to know, like, I am a very new person to this Geoshred, so I'm learning it right now. So, but my question is, if you could add in some features where we could visualize, let's say, I just hear a song, I just track it. Like, let's say I want to play Mission Impossible. So I just use my mic to understand what's playing there, and then being able to visualize those notes on Geoshred. Would that be possible, do you think, so that it can enable me to play better?
Yeah, so you want to, let me just make sure I understand. So you would like to be able to have the computer listen to what you're playing and then to be able to show you what notes those are.
Yeah, and then that enables me to play better, and I can learn it faster. That's something interesting. I thought maybe you could add.
No, it's very interesting. And a matter of fact, the closest thing that I know of right now to that is something like the Lumi system by Rowley. I don't know if you're aware of what they're doing, but when my friend Roland Lamb, who's the inventor of the Seaboard, came and showed me what he's doing with the Lumi, one of the things is that Lumi you can run a song and have your Lumi keyboard connected, and it will literally light up the keys that are related to the audio that's happening. So if you wanted to like jam along with a song,
yes, that's exactly what
it will show. It will show you, like the demo he gave me was he played As I Am, which is a Dream Theater song, and as it was playing, after it did a little bit of processing, he played it back, and it was lighting up the keys with the pitches of the music that were playing. So yes, that of course that technology is possible. That's the, and there's probably other things that do that as well that some of the listeners might know about, but that's the one I've seen. It's really cool, and I'll bring that up in my next meeting with the Stanford guys that we need to add that to Geoshred.
Yeah, because that would be interesting, because that increases the learning curve. Like I as a new person can learn it faster. So I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm just worried they'll hang up on me if I give them that request. Their plates are pretty full with things that, even though that's an amazing idea, that might just come before that. But thank you for that. No, that's awesome feedback. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, we have two more questions here. Can it be externally triggered to use patches? Is it polyphonic?
Yes.
From where? From Linda Fisher?
From Linda Fisher. Yes.
Hello, Linda Fisher. How's it going? Hey, so Geoshred can be used as a tone module. You can plug things like a Seaboard or a regular keyboard into it and play. And absolutely, it's polyphonic. And one of the nice things about the polyphony is that it's MPE. So you can bend, some notes and not other notes. And of course, that's something that we all, want to be able to do. So the answer is yes.
Okay, I have one last question. This is from Mark. Could someone ever essentially conduct an AI orchestra at the level of the great conductors?
That just makes us laugh, right?
Yeah.
I think a robot would have to do that. An AI conductor.
Yes.
that was listening to the sound of the AI orchestra and responding accordingly. That would be the way to do it, right?
So can we say that a takeaway from your talk today is with respect to the future of synthesis, one of the things you are looking for, like to see, is more of an interaction between sound and visualization. So a kind of sonic visualization thing going on as we go forward, and controllers. You know, it sounds like we can almost produce any sound imaginable. Now the next marriage, future marriage, is visualization plus that sound, and then taking both of those and giving you more flexibility with respect to controllers.
I think that's beautifully said. I mean, obviously there's more work that can be done on sound, and I'm into it, all for it, and participate in that. But I'm perhaps more focused on what you're saying, like how do you control the sound? How do you provide information? How do visuals come into play in understanding the way that the human brain kind of processes you know, the sound and the visual to create higher level instruments.
Wow, this is
and also, you know, we talk a lot about AI, and you're mentioning robots and all that kind of thing. But my main interest is in how do we take who we are as people and make instruments that make us feel like, wow, we are so connected to this. We are able to express ourselves, and that's the thing that you know, that kind of thinking is what you can't replace, because you cannot take away that experience from me. You give me an instrument, you give me my beautiful Steinway piano, I have that experience now. It doesn't matter if the robot is, you know, AI robots controlling the AI orchestra. I'm still able to express that, and the robot.
Well, is your Steinway, is it digital?
No.
So you've got to be having problems finding a piano tuner, right? Those are guys are becoming obsolete pretty soon.
Oh, I got a great guy. As a matter of fact, my piano tuner is the one guy I let in my house during this whole lockdown. Literally, I'm not kidding. It's not an exaggeration. He walks directly in and he goes and he tunes his piano. But my piano tuner is very, very cool. He's a guitar player, and now he's gotten into Euro rack stuff. When I met him, he wasn't. He was into pedals and things like that. But he's totally into Euro rack and modules. And every time he comes over, he talks to me about his new, you know, Euro rack stuff. And he does a beautiful job tuning my piano. So.
Wow. I tell you what, he's becoming obsolete. Not obsolete, but extinct.
I will not tell him. No.
Yeah, he's coming extinct, and that's kind of what Jordan. We want to thank you for really this is a great talk, very insightful, and to get this kind of information from a guy with your depth and your breadth and the kind of experience, it means a lot to our group.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. You guys are awesome as well. And thanks to everybody who tuned in today to join us.
Yeah, and we're going to be releasing this stuff. If you don't mind, we want to be able to point people to the Jordan Rudess site, if that's okay with you. We want to be able to point them to links to the Geoshred and the what you have coming. You know, you might get flooded with contacts at this point. So we kind of want to ask your permission to do that, if that's okay.
Sure.
We want to let you know that there were people on this in the chat from all over the place. Some people left and came back. We had people in India, the Netherlands, LA, Philadelphia. You're just people all over. So I think there was a pretty good. We had a pretty good showing, and I think you were in front of some important people here. So that this is very interesting. And again, thank you so much. I'm glad you have a positive outlook on where this is all going. We on the computer side, we see the propensity to be able to replace people. You know, like I said, the masters like yourself, you're not in trouble, but that mediocre guy, he's in trouble because, you know, for $500 and some templates and some arpeggios, you know, and an AI a music generator, I can replace that guy and nobody will care.
Yeah, but you can't, right? But you can't replace his joy when he's making music. So
that's right.
Right, and that's
I understand what you're saying. There's a financial concern here.
And the other thing that we're very concerned about is that if you know, on the like for instance, the orchestra, although we're getting very close with replicating so many aspects of the articulations and the dynamics, we're able to replicate that, but the camaraderie, the friendships, the human story behind the orchestra, you know, people meeting their spouses and you know, their best friends and those kinds of things, you can't really replace that. And what happens though, as you reduce the amount of orchestras, you know, live orchestras, because so much stuff is sampled and physical modeled, you know, are we running into a danger of maybe curtailing social interaction? If you understand my point.
I do. Yeah, I totally do. I don't want to get in any more trouble with anybody, so I'm going to continue.
Fair enough. Thanks a bunch. Okay.
That's my reaction to that.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you guys.
So we'll give you a virtual applause here.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Very
appreciate
good
it.
job, man. Very, very good job. We're fans. We watch you. We will continue to watch you. You know, your stuff on the Roland is great too. The Phantom, that's good
cool.
stuff, man. You know.
Thank you.
Phantom,
And I like the acoustic performances. I like you playing the piano. That's phenomenal. It's
you go.
beautiful.
Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. Well, take care, you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye now.